The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party Podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times with Good People company, the host, or its sponsors.
It's not getting in.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel.
First, of course, I've got my returning champion, Chris O'Connor. He's the owner of Liquid 9 Entertainment and Investments, as well as having interest in Rieger Whiskey and Office Works. I've got Big Dave Elliott. He's the owner of C&P Construction. Ben Roberts will be joining us shortly. He is the bartender extraordinaire here at the Pendergast Club. And, of course, the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. So before we get started, I am bringing back a segment that was beloved toward the beginning. And that segment is, what are we drinking and what are we smoking? And we're going to change it just a little bit, and it is, what is our smoke of the day? What is our drink of the day? And today's smoke of the day is a Monte Cristo Classic Series. And the Monte Cristo Classic Series is a special blend of Dominican combinations of tobacco that are bold, rich, and full of flavor. The legend behind this brand was Dominican and was responsible for growing and maintaining the highest quality of binders, fillers, and tobaccos for this outstanding series of Monte Cristo Classic cigars. So, when Ben gets here, we're going to have him do what our drink of the day is, because he is the bartender extraordinaire. We're not going to deprive him of that privilege, but we're going to move right along with our RIPs for the day. And we had a couple this time. We had a few, actually. First, star of Robin Big from MTV, Christopher Big Black Boykin. Passed at 45. I don't know if anybody out there in podcast land.
Wasn't that Rob?
Rob Dyrdek's, yeah.
They would probably know him more from that.
Yeah. Well, that's who the Rob and Robin Big was. And so before Rob Dyrdek had Fantasy Factory or the show Ridiculousness, and I believe another show on MTV, if I'm not mistaken, he had a show called Robin Big, and his best friend and partner on the show, Big Black, was his bodyguard, but the two of them were just hilarious together. And he passed away really young, so we want to send a rest in peace to him. As you may or may not know out there in podcast land, Chris Cornell, the lead singer of Soundgarden and Audioslave, he passed away at 52, also really young. Side note, he never knew it, but I worked for Chris Cornell for a little while when I lived in Seattle. He owned a club called the Rock Candy. And I worked for the Rock Candy for a little while. And
the interesting thing about him is that he hung himself.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't help but wonder some days. You know, they got all these designer drugs out there nowadays. And these guys are on the road and they got different issues and different problems, or they're having trouble sleeping, like Ambien will make you get up and sleepwalk, and there's different things like that. And you wonder if it's just somehow maybe he was taking some of these drugs that prescribed to him by some doctor, and he whacked out.
So that is the story that I heard was that, and I don't know if this is right, wrong, or different because I didn't read it. I just heard it from a friend who is a big Soundgarden fan and all this stuff. And I cannot remember the name of the drug to save my life, but it was an antidepressant. And he had actually called his wife earlier in the night. They had just played a show in Detroit and called her when he got back to the hotel and said he had taken more than normal. A couple extra, because he was feeling kind of blue. And then that's kind of how it went. So there's side effects to all those. Like antidepressants don't necessarily always.
Antidepressants can cause depression.
Yes.
Usually prescribe something else to go with it.
It's a true guessing game. Like you really don't know which one's going to work and which one's going to work with your chemical makeup and all those things. So, the sad part about it is, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to know if it's even working for you, and it's bizarre. Like people think an antidepressant makes you happy. It just makes you not miserable all the time.
Kind of zones you out more than anything.
Yeah, that's the definition of an antidepressant working for you. Honestly, I ended up feeling worse when I tried to get healthy, like because I have the throat infection and everything. I tried for 2 years to fix it. I spent about $15,000 on just random guesses from doctors, which were all wrong. And then I went 5 years with nothing. Then I tried for another 2 years to fix it, and they put me on so many medications. I've never been on meds before, and it has ruined so much of my health that it's just beyond belief. And then the act of trying to get off of those meds is harder than what it was
So
before.
he was on Ativan.
Ativan, that was the name of it.
And he didn't hang himself. He strangled himself.
Oof. Well, because they found him on the floor. That's
With an
why
exercise band around his neck.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was weird. So I didn't know if he hung himself and it snapped or what happened.
No, it said he was on the floor with blood running from his mouth and a red exercise band around his neck.
God bless him.
But it's really kind of sad because it said the bodyguard found him and he tried to get this hotel security to let him in his room and they wouldn't do it. So he kicked the door in.
Oh, good for him.
And then his bedroom door was, obviously he was in a suite. His
Right.
bedroom door was locked, so he kicked that door in. So it was just like...
The hotel.
That's a good bodyguard, He's doing his job.
Doing his job.
Hotel
And
should
then
have said, hey, maybe I'm going to unlock this for you real quick.
Well, they said
You're
because
making
he
it worse.
was not registered to that room, they wouldn't let him in. Which I totally get to a certain extent. But when you're a known bodyguard for somebody,
That's what
there
I mean.
should be some exceptions.
And if there's a celebrity and you know that you're responsible for their protection and security, that should have been established up front and well known, and they should have. That's just complete stupidity.
Yeah.
Honestly, on the
So
part of
they
the hotel.
he attempted CPR, but
It's too late.
I'm assuming.
I mean, it had to be at that point.
Yeah.
That's sad.
But within
So was it during the middle of the night that they found him?
Well, they got done with their show, and he went to the room.
Right.
And he was there. The security guard was there with him for a little bit. He had given him the Ativan after the show, and left. And that's when he
But
and
did
his,
he give him
he
more
and-
than he normally did?
He said
Because there was-
two Ativan is
Okay.
what he gave him. Now, whether or
Is
not
that normal or not normal?
well, it
who
would
knows?
depend on what your doctor gives.
No, I agree. But I
some
know
people
that-
I know that have taken it take more than one, but
Sure.
I think it depends on.
But I know that he called his wife and said that he took more than normal.
Well, I mean, it doesn't say that in the report. It just
Yeah.
says that they had a conversation. She was concerned because he was slurring his speech,
Right.
and she called the security guard. That all from the time he talked to her to the time the security guard was less than 30 minutes.
So that would have been, basically immediately.
Yeah.
So he got off the phone with her and
And then
And
just
killed
When
himself.
he
Did the
kicked
deed.
in, wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But it was, less than 30 minutes
Oh,
time
that
from.
poor woman, that just sucks.
That's,
And I really dislike when people get angry or any of that stuff. Like suicide is not a selfish act. It's none of those things. I don't think people understand the mental anguish somebody is going through to perform something like that. It's usually one of the least selfish things you can do. It's just your world has to be so
I
turned
don't know.
upside down.
I think it is. I personally think it is kind of selfish, but
I think it's selfish to
not
have somebody
having
live in a world
been-
of pain.
well, not having been to that point in my life, I couldn't tell you, like, I can't even fathom how you would be able to end your own life, especially when you have a family.
I've seen it
You know?
firsthand where I had a roommate walk in my room at 2 a.m. one night with a gun pointed to his head and said he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And it took everything I could to get him to put it down. And then I gave him a bunch of sleeping pills and knocked him out. And then took him to the hospital and locked him up. And probably the only reason he's still alive at this point, he's still one of my very good friends. But what you're going through at that moment
Yeah.
is impossible for other people to understand.
Well, and I think other people that have been to that point can understand it.
Sure, but I
but
think they would all tell you it's probably not a selfish thing, and nobody wants to kill themselves. It's just they just want the hurting to stop, and I can see that.
My point is that the thing that bothers me, because it doesn't fit in my psyche, is that you're quitting. You're quitting.
It's not.
You
It's not
quit.
like that.
You just gave up. You quit.
well, and I
it's
think
not
that
like
that all the, like, my feelings about it, your feelings about it, are
Yeah.
because we've never experienced it. You've never felt
Hopeless to that
hopeless
point.
to that point. You know what I mean? Well, you didn't because you have never thought about killing yourself.
But I've been hopeless.
But you've
Well,
never
it's
been to
not
the
the
point
same
where you
thing.
think
That
ending
you
your
thought
life
that-
is
yeah.
the only answer.
Yeah.
There's a big difference from people that are able to kind of push past that and people that don't know how to push past that.
No,
If the
I
pain was
was
so
taught how to
bad.
push past tough spots.
Well, that's awesome, but if the pain is so unbearable to you that you literally cannot live with it anymore, because I'm a quality of life person. I do believe in quality of life, and I don't think you're quitting because you reach a point where that's not the quality of life that you want.
But if you're sitting in an alley beside a dumpster and I just shot up and it's raining and I got nothing, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Well,
But
I will.
You know, you almost think, I'm not saying I did think it, but you are thinking just do another one and I don't have to worry about it.
But you don't have to be in that situation to be suicidal. That's like everybody has a different pain threshold, a different tolerance threshold. Circumstances are different. You can be exceptionally wealthy and live in a mansion and have a shit ton of problems.
Well,
and
money isn't
Does
happy.
not bring you
That's
happiness.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like you
But it helps.
don't understand what's going on in that person's life.
Yeah,
That's why
well,
I'm
and
very
I guess-
slow to say it's a selfish act.
Yeah.
And,
So
Yeah.
I feel
And I
that way,
get-
but
I
I
get that.
recognize that, you know.
I think most of the time it's biochemical anyway. You know, so there's very little.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a coworker that was. We didn't even know that she was manic depressive until, and she was just lovely. And then one day, she hit a down spiral, and that was I want to say that was a Thursday or Friday, and then all of a sudden we started getting the texts and the emails and everything else.
It was during the week.
Yeah.
Because
Well, remember the weather
we saw her
test.
light on, and you went to work the next day, and that's like halfway through the day you guys found out.
Yeah, and she had killed
And you were
herself.
like,
then.
we just saw her, and
Well,
like we saw the back of her head at her desk.
Yeah.
What about the weather forecaster at Channel 4? Happy-go-lucky guy, committed suicide, had wife and kids. Remember?
Well,
and that's
I mean,
what-
we
I
could
heard
be
it.
on this topic
Yeah, but
the whole time. but
It is a difficult but interesting topic.
yeah.
We've got one more rest in peace anyway, and so I was taught never to speak ill of the dead, which is the reason that I've kept this particular person in our rest in peace.
I thought it's because I talked you into it the other night.
No. I actually really thought about whether or not I was going to take this person off of the list or not. But he is no longer with us, and
good you put off.
anytime there is a loss of life. It is a tragedy that deserves at least
Well, he was an impact person.
respect.
He's an impact person, whether you like him or not. You have to talk about impact people.
Yeah.
That's what we discussed.
Yeah, and that is what we discussed. Yeah. Roger Ailes out there in podcast land, the former CEO of Fox News. He passed away at 77. So, having been kind of imbrued in all of the issues that he had on his way out of Fox News, you still, like I say, you don't want to speak ill of the dead, and whether or not you liked him or not, and I personally was not one of those people that liked him. Like you say, he was a person who had impact on our culture, and that is kind of what we talk about. So I did want to include him in our rest in peace for this week.
Well, everybody followed what he had.
Well,
He developed it. CNN, MSNBC, every single one of them followed his basic formula of what news is nowadays. Whether we like it or not, and most of us don't like it, because it's not just Fox. We don't like the other ones either, because they've just grown on the same dang way, whatever their subject may be, whichever side of the fence they decide to play on.
Well, and even more,
It's too much information.
I think it wasn't information. It was more entertainment.
It became
infotainment, which is what
and
it
put the
was.
girls in the dresses.
It was opinion shows that they pretended was news. Yeah. But what I will say is, I find it very possible to admire somebody's professional accomplishments without needing to like them personally.
True.
I would put him in that category. I think you reinvented
that's
the
why I
way
would.
that news, if you want to call it news, is delivered today, and I don't mind it at all. Actually, I think it's far more honest than it was prior to that. They got rid of all the pretense of not taking a side, and they just said, "This is our side." Same way that MSNBC does, and they said, "This is our side."
Right.
And you have CNN, who still tries to walk the classic balance to almost no effect at all, unless you really want. Some objective journalism, and as objective as journalism gets.
Or 5-day coverage of a plane going down someplace.
Sure, but the way that he changed the industry was remarkable, and the fact that he was such an a-hole in real life, I don't mind seeing him go out in a inglorious way. That doesn't bother me at all, but. I do respect what he did professionally, and I would not call it a tragedy. I would just call it another dude dying.
Hey, you can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/Loft Party Podcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay, and we're back. And Ben Roberts, he has joined us, and as I told you, he is our bartender extraordinaire here up at the Pendergast Club, and he is going to describe our drink of the day.
Our drink of the day, it's made with Rieger whiskey because it's delicious, and it is 1.5 ounces of Rieger whiskey, 3/4 ounce of a ginger liqueur called Domaine de Canton, 3/4 ounce of a hibiscus cordial, and 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, and 1 ounce of egg white. Dry shaken and wet shaken and poured in a martini glass.
Delicious.
Yeah.
What do you mean dry shaken and wet shaken?
Okay, so this egg white method was a craze for a while. Bartenders still do it because it's effective. Whenever you put egg white in a cocktail, you shake it without ice first to get that whipping of the egg white in the cocktail. So that whenever you wet shake it, which is what it's called, whenever you put the ice in it and actually just shake it, it creates that frothing on the top and makes it just really silky and smooth.
Like a gin fizz would be.
Oh yeah, it's delightful.
And what's the drink called? Come on, Ben, you gotta name them.
We'll call that the Prohibition Hibiscus.
There you go.
There we go.
That's a good name. See, I made you think about it.
Here we go.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get too deep, let's play a quick party game. So, if your entire life was a movie, what would the title be? And we're going to start. I usually go around the table. I'm trying to remember the last game.
Don't start with me because I don't know.
So, that puts it on Chris O'Connor.
No problem. The title would be, what the fuck did you just do? That would be the name.
I was thinking, what the fuck did you just say? Would have been mine.
That's tough. Mine's kind of like an old title.
All right.
Old Clint Eastwood movie. It's kind of like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
It's all right. I'll take it.
I've experienced a lot of them.
I will take that. I will take that. What about you, Ben?
War and Cocktails.
War and Cocktails.
Good one, Ben.
Yeah, that's
That's
good.
Good.
That's good.
And true.
And what do you
No,
think?
I really don't know.
Come on.
I really don't know. I'm not going to make you guys sit here and wait. I can't, you know me, I can't just be like, I have to think about
But you got that down, though.
And she
I'm
does
still
have.
trying to think about what my 6 words are.
Oh,
we talked about that this morning.
Yeah, this is true. I'm about to say, now you have to explain the whole 6 words because you brought it up, which I was actually going to do next
The
week.
name of the movie, 6
Well, then
words.
they have time to think about their 6 words.
This is true,
That
but you have to
never give them
explain.
time.
That
But
could
you
be
have to
her
explain
movie,
the
the
6
6 words.
So, no. So there's a book.
While she's looking for that,
What are you?
I was just going to say that I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that it will probably be Beats, Booze, and Conversation.
There we go.
That's good. That's kind of my life.
That's to the heart of it.
So there's a book that was put out by NPR. It's 6-word memoirs, life stories distilled. So you sum up your life in 6 words.
And it's actually
Which is-
That's a party. That's
It's
a party
actually
game.
it's actually
So
kind of
think
cool.
about it for next week. So some of them are like 70 years, few tears, hairy ears. Watching quietly from every doorframe. Catholic school backfired, sin is in. Some cross-eyed kid forgotten and found. I mean, it's just, born in the desert, still thirsty. A sake mom, not soccer mom. So, I mean, some of them are funny, but it's a whole book of famous and not famous that people that Smith Magazine collected and turned into like this little paperback book.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So be
So,
thinking about that for next week.
my-
Because that will be the party game question for next week.
My nephew was introduced to that by one of his creative teachers, and my brother, being a pastor, he's always throwing. That's how Mario and I got our tattoos with our values. That was one of his questions, and he said, "What would your 6 words be?" So everybody's been. What was yours?
I had 2. One of them that I cannot remember to save my life right now, and the other I say every week.
It's a good times with good people.
There we go. Yeah. So with that,
So yes, I've still off and on been trying to think of what my 6 words would
Okay.
be. Everything is like 1 word too many.
okay. So
So it's my life in 7 words.
Okay. So we're coming back to you for your movie title.
Yes.
All right.
I could also
I might
go.
answer that
I got
next
another
week.
title for me: Old Carpenters and Old Dogs. That would work for me
we
too.
can do that too. All right. So here we go. More party politics. So, self-incrimination. Are we getting closer to impeachment?
No.
Nope. Takes 2/3 to impeach anybody. There's only been 2 presidents that were impeached, and that was Andrew Jackson, correct?
No.
Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
Thank you.
Yep.
I knew my historian would come through.
You're correct.
And Bill Clinton.
Yep.
The only other one that didn't get impeached that would have been Richard Nixon, but he bowed out before.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's too difficult of a thing to make happen. There just isn't enough play in it to make it happen.
Well, and first off, just so everybody knows, impeachment does not mean that you were kicked out of office. It means that you were brought up on charges that could potentially kick you out of office.
And only Congress can do that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't think people realize that.
And
Like,
only
no
by a
matter
two-thirds
how many legal things you think deserve it, Congress has to say, yes, we're going to impeach you.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not legal, it's congressional.
And there is no majority in the other direction to even bring it to a vote right now.
Well, and the honest truth is he has every right to fire the head of the FBI if he wants to. He can fire the head of the FBI whenever he wants. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the one who appoints him in the first place. So, and allows him to stay on and all those things. So, firing Comey wasn't a federal offense, so there's nothing there. If you're asking if we're getting closer to impeachment in terms of is there a lot more smoke going on around this situation? Sure. Yeah. Now they have, 10 different special investigations going on, and everybody wants a part of it and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that we're getting closer to impeachment than we ever were. I feel like he, much to my dismay, somehow skates through this and technically gets away with it. But, I would love to see it happen.
Well, hasn't it been somewhat ridiculous, though, that from the day he was elected even, there are many people out there going, we need to be impeached right off the bat.
No,
they did the same thing to Obama. I mean,
yes, they did. But I'm not saying that this is a healthy thing.
No, it's not.
It's not a healthy thing, and this is where we're at right now, and this is the real problem behind it, is I'm going to get you, sucker.
Yeah, our republic is going haywire.
I think there's a
the Democrats
huge
have too,
discrepancy. There's a huge discrepancy between saying, I don't like you and I don't like your politics, so I want you impeached.
Yes.
Which is not appropriate, and I think that would apply to Obama's case,
right,
where there were just a lot of people who just said, I don't like your politics, I want you impeached. Versus, I think you did something illegal with a foreign government that influenced our election, and you colluded to make it happen, and that is a crime. That is a crime called treason, which is the only one defined in the Constitution of the United States, and it's punishable by death. So, in my mind, there's a part of me that just really wishes they would impeach him, find him guilty of treason, and then just hang him from a tree. But I don't think it's going to happen, but it is what I would love to see.
But they would never impeach, because any time a president gets in trouble, somebody falls on the sword.
Well, you're going to see my Flynn do it here.
Somebody falls on the sword.
Flynn already decided not to comply with the order that he got to come to Congress. He said he wasn't going to.
It's complete to fit. It's over.
Eventually you get a subpoena and you go to jail for that.
As far as the treason is concerned, don't we have to actually be at war for it to be literal treason?
No, not at all.
Really?
Anytime that you act, whether it's peace or not, peace or wartime, if you act against the interests of the United States, that is treasonous. So, for example, we were not at war when the Rosenbergs were executed, the last people to be executed for treason in the United States. We were not at war at that point. They just gave secrets to the Soviets.
I see.
Sorry.
It's just
a weighty subject.
There's so much to
it's just a reality subject, though. I mean,
there's so much to unpack in that. I guess is what is where my mind was at that moment. Mm-hmm. I mean, because first you've got the whole situation with getting rid of the FBI director, like I say, which is in his legal purview.
Yep.
My issue is whether or not he asked if he politely asked if Comey would back off the investigation.
Still doesn't matter.
Because to me, that falls under obstruction of justice.
But Comey screwed up
legally.
because he would have had to report it.
Exactly. And
He would have
never
had
did.
to report it, and he went in front of Congress and testified, did he not?
He did indeed. If there was really a threat that was an implied, hey, bend the law and kill this investigation, and I feel like this is an obstruction of justice, he should have turned him in at that point.
And by doing so,
the
he broke the
argument
law.
is-
If he
Well,
did.
wasn't it because he was in the middle of the investigation that he didn't?
Not at all.
Well,
Well, do we know that for sure?
yes.
How do you know that for sure?
Because he has, by law, he has to report it.
It
It's
doesn't.
just,
Okay,
it's a square up
we're
law.
saying what the law is, but are we saying why he didn't? Nobody knows that but him.
It
Well,
doesn't,
well,
but it doesn't matter
yeah,
now
but
because he
we're-
can't do anything about it without
you can't impeach
incriminating himself.
somebody with just not based on the law. It has to be based on the law, and he should have reported him if he thought it was an impeachable offense, and he did not. So,
Well,
and
why would he
continued
think
to
it was?
serve.
Did he even say that?
It doesn't matter if he did or didn't. He didn't turn him into anybody. He would have had a constitutional duty to report him. So that's
And they
the
are
entire
sworn under the
thing.
Constitution to uphold the Constitution.
That's the entire point.
I find that hilarious.
Well, it's true. But
Our
that is
congressman,
that is
yes.
how the law states. You can't state what the other
Yeah,
law
I
is.
get that. But how long has it actually been since our Congress upheld the law on anything?
Well, you could take that on both sides of the
different
I'm
story.
not saying, I said our Congress.
I
I
agree.
didn't say the Republicans.
That's a different argument, and it's not the same argument. What I would say is that if it was a criminal offense, he had a duty to report him. He didn't. He ended up getting fired, and he could have been fired legitimately for any number of reasons, including the Hillary leaking the Hillary stuff,
Which
before the election.
that in of itself to me is hilarious.
It's hypocrisy to the core.
That Trump will go, you know what, because of the way you handled Hillary, I'm going to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Like, that is hilarious.
But the
On a
Democrats were
special-
screaming for it, so now
on a-
you know
on
you
a
got.
special level.
it's-
Ugh.
The whole thing's more.
Can't have your
like
cake
that.
and eat
Yeah,
it too.
It's nothing
It's
yet has
ultimate
become
hypocrisy.
impeachable, but it is funny that he continually
like,
is
parties
being
are
caught
not.
in lies.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, like,
It's me.
and I guess that's why I'm asking the question is whether or not any one action has risen to the point of impeachable. Like, he's been caught in so many lies since he's been in office that I'm like, at what point does the cumulative amount of lies people go, you know what, we have no faith in the president.
Well, it doesn't matter if you have faith in the president or not. None of them are impeachable offenses. So he wasn't under oath when he gives a press briefing and says, "I didn't."
Yeah, lying is
disclose,
not an impeachable offense in
any
itself.
Intelligence secrets to anybody, or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want privately. I mean, like he called. I think what he said he was insane or clinically. Basically,
Oh, for
clinically
calling
insane
it,
off his
yeah,
rocker and all
He's
this
a
to,
nut
to
job.
the Russia. Yeah, said it was a nut job to the Russian ambassador and all this. Well, who cares? That's not an impeachable offense.
Well, one of the things there too is whatever he says is always leaked by somebody.
Sure.
And that's, you can't say anything anywhere in government without somebody running to the press anymore.
But
Well,
that is-
but that's
which
been
is
going
some-
on forever.
Yeah, but that's still a bothersome thing. That's
You know what?
still-
It's not to me, not in government. Now,
In business.
in business, yes, that's bothersome. In government, if
You still have to have private conversations.
your job is to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
Wait a second.
If you're working for the government of the United States of America, and if you feel that somebody is doing something to undermine the Constitution in some way or another, to me, that's like one of your duties as a citizen.
Well, so again, you were making the argument against Comey, so he should have reported it. And then beyond that, what I would also say is, I think this is more a reflection on the news cycle. because if you look at how many, there was one story in the Washington Post that had 43 unnamed sources.
Yes.
That were
And
quoted.
then the New York Times followed up.
I mean, that is just preposterous.
Well,
that's not news at that point.
Yeah.
That because there's no way to vet the information out. You don't know why these people are saying it. You have no idea what's going on.
Right.
Like, listen, I dislike a lot of people. I probably talk shit on a ton of people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
if I do it to a reporter and they use it in a story,
Right.
and say he's an unnamed source, well, shit. I
Now,
mean,
you know
I-
what's interesting? I was we were looking at Rachel Maddow maybe a month or so ago, and she was saying how, and at the time, I think the number of sources on stories had gone up to like 9 or something, and she was saying, if I have one corroborated source, I'm gonna go, hell no. But if I have 2, that's solid enough to actually air. And I was thinking, now we're up to 43
But
sources.
I'm
That's
asking, who are the
insane.
43 sources? If
No, I
you're
get what you're
43
saying, yeah.
people of a like-minded ilk as you.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You just, you
Yeah.
weren't searching for the truth. You just found 43 dudes who are guys
Who feel the way you feel,
Who
right.
feel the way you feel, and congratulations. Now you have
Yeah.
a story, and you can say, look how deeply I researched this. I have all these unnamed sources who I won't tell you who they are, but they all feel this way. That's ridiculous.
I could find 43 Reddit comments that agree with me, and I could be like, hey, these are
sure.
my 43 unnamed sources.
Yeah, exactly.
I can get 43 likes on Facebook for this story. This is
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, look.
Yeah. Good for you.
Who likes on Facebook should never be.
Yeah.
You never be your bar.
I feel like it counts as
Tell that the
a
last
stage.
election cycle.
You got that right. All right, so what are we thinking about our now new independent investigator, Robert Mueller III?
Unanimously confirmed 100%. I feel very good about him.
Two different administrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Former head of the FBI.
Yeah.
I think he will be phenomenal. What I hope does not happen is that Kinstar was, I believe, unanimously confirmed and very well thought of and highly respected at the time, and got literally utterly slammed and degraded for maybe overreaching his bounds, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know. I don't know what these special investigations always make me a little nervous because there's no real rules that confine them or anything else. But at least initially off the bat, I think they found somebody reasonably impartial who can be pretty fair, and clearly everybody in Congress agreed that he could be pretty impartial and fair. So I feel pretty good about it.
The interesting thing is that he may uncover things on both party lines that could really cause trouble for a lot of people. I mean, he could uncover things from the Clinton campaign involved with all this stuff too. I mean, there's a lot of dirt out there, and he might come up and go and really expose a lot of people.
It's possible.
It's possible.
I just think it would be weird to have 100% unanimous confirmation of an individual if you thought that you were going to suffer some harm from it.
Sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. You know, sometimes these guys come out and they are impartial, and they start digging around and they go, look at that. I'm going after that too. This all kind of ties together with this, and that ties together with that.
And once you don't have to report to anybody, you're just a complete ideologue, and so you can go after whatever you believe is the truth at that point.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I agree with you 1,000%. It could go both ways. But I think if they thought that there was something that could harm him, you would not have had 100% confirmation.
He's also up against the machine. Anybody that in Washington is up against the machine. I mean, you look at, like on the Republican side, McCain and Graham and even Roberts from Kansas and these guys that have been in there forever. And then you go on the Democratic side with Feinstein and Pelosi and on and on. You know, Schumer. These guys are the machine.
The difference is
they are a political force.
the difference is subpoena power, and when you have that, that is very different. That is entirely different.
I agree.
And,
But he's still up against them.
maybe, but once you can pull a subpoena into play, you have to answer the questions, and that's a different deal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it's just like, you don't think Bill Clinton would have just pleaded the fifth all the time, or just said, I'm not going to show up to your congressional query on this Monica Lewinsky thing if he didn't have to? No, he got subpoenaed. He had to, by law, testify. And he couldn't.
But how
not
many
answer
people
the
have been
questions.
subpoenaed before Congress recently and nothing came from it? Nothing. They go in and talk. When's the last time Congress took somebody and said, okay, you've gone too far, we're going to turn this over to the DOJ and indict you? When's the last time you heard of that?
Yeah, Barry Bonds. Oh, like probably
Barry
seriously,
Bonds. Yeah,
probably
yeah.
seriously Barry Bonds.
That would be, and you're looking at that going, really? I mean, that was something that was Congress shouldn't even been messing with, in my opinion.
Well, Congress made it pass a rule to make baseball somehow a protected union. They're one of the only ones in America,
but
so
still, why would they even messing with it?
it's not that.
That should have been handled internally by baseball, just like they did with Pete Rose.
No, they have bizarre constitutional and governmental protection. It's very strange. If you ever look up the history of baseball in this country, is protected by Congress as a union, and it's very weird.
But my point being is really,
Because it's the American.
It's the American pastime. Yeah.
it still had nothing to do with it, in my opinion. They may have.
It was
I don't
so
disagree
great.
with what you say, but that was BS. BS.
All right, so we got one more topic in this section of the show, and I thought this was beyond interesting, and that is Julian Assange. Sweden drops the rape charge that's been hanging over his head for years, but
You still can't go nowhere.
he still, but I say, but he still can't leave the Ecuadorian embassy, which is hilarious.
Because England's after him, the United
Right.
States is after him.
Exactly.
I mean, these people, he cannot walk out. He was a prisoner in his own place.
Yeah, if he leans over the balcony too long, somebody's gonna snatch him
It
down.
wasn't his only crime. I mean,
No.
he's done many things. This is just one.
I know. I found it hilarious when they had his mom on TV talking about how he gets no exercise and it's just not fair.
Yeah, that's
He gets no
exceptional.
exercise.
I missed that one.
Oh yeah, I was like, really? That's what you're gonna go on TV and talk about? How he just is so horrible that he's cooped up in this small little place. And
My
gets
baby
no
doesn't get any
exercise.
fresh air.
You're telling me at the Ecuadorian embassy in England that they don't have a workout room?
He can't even go out and take a walk.
No.
But that's
Wait a
that's
second.
how.
Oh,
That's
they
how
got
the
a gym in there
conversation
somewhere.
went.
You tell
like,
me
they
that
got
there's not a
treadmills in
workout
there.
room in the Ecuadorian embassy. There's workout rooms at all these embassies.
It's a gym in there.
I'm like,
There's
if
a
your
Planet Fitness
son
sitting
wasn't getting exercise, he wouldn't still be thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
But
ridiculous.
he's still allowed to get press conferences and everything else.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, it suck really bad.
Yeah, I'm like, this is.
I will equate this to a similar case, which I think you can do pretty easily, which is Roman Polanski, which I wish Sweden did not drop the rape charge, only because it's the same reason that the United States has never dropped the case against Roman Polanski. Is you're not allowed back in our country. Stay the hell out of here.
Right.
You know,
Well,
and if you step foot in here, we will prosecute you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
You
they
can't
say
rape
that
a
they
13-year-old
couldn't get
girl in
enough
no way.
information? They couldn't pursue it any further.
Yeah.
I think it was a waste of resources and time. I just wish they had left it on the books
Yeah.
and as just an open case and not devoted resources to it anymore and just said, listen, stay the hell out of our country.
I know what's going to happen. Tom Cruise is going to show up in a helicopter and they're going to airlift him off the top of Mission Impossible. That's what's going to happen.
Not only is it going to be Tom Cruise, but it'll be something.
It'll be somebody. Jeez. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger and Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers. 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do. Time to rejoin the conversation.
And we're back. So, a couple more things that I wanted to touch on kind of quickly anyway. So the FCC votes to begin the rollback of net neutrality regulations. And I thought about what we're doing right now, putting out a net product. I know you have to deal a lot on the net. And so I thought that we would maybe have an opinion or two.
How about starting off with this for the old carpenter? Explain net neutrality to me to start off, because I really don't totally
Ben
get
has his hand up.
It's complicated, but in very simple terms.
That's good. I'm a simple man.
Say you have an internet service provider, right? And you also have a product on the internet that directly conflicts with the service that said internet service provider provides. Like, say if Netflix had their thing, and then Comcast or Time Warner were trying to offer a service similar to compete with them, which they are, they can throttle their data and make it so everybody who's trafficking said sites experiences incredible slowness, and it damages the product in which they are trying to put out on the internet.
Exactly. So what it allows you to do is say, well, we're going to slow down Google, but we're not going to slow down Apple. So here we go. So now all of a sudden you're paying internet providers who are doing nothing but delivering data over pipes to say, okay, make me equal with everybody else, or make me faster than everybody else, and that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous.
To sort of put a parallel to it, that it would be as such if KCP&L had interest in one of your competitors, or it was doing business with them, they could throttle your electricity and say you only get this much power.
Well, I'll give you the real life example would be AT&T. Mm-hmm. So through Uverse, they bought DirecTV, and so they deliver cable to a ton of homes, and it's in their best interest to provide DirecTV content, which is exclusive to them, into individual homes. And the way you would make it more advantageous for you is to say, well, what I'm going to do is cripple Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon, so that my DirecTV content comes through fast, clear, 4K, beautiful, and nice. But hey, you other guys, if you want that same kind of service, then you need to pay for it.
My mom and dad have that issue because they have, I believe they have DirecTV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it might be Dish, but I don't.
I think it's DirecTV though.
They can't get Netflix to work correctly.
And that's part of the other problem is that you're seeing these bundled packages of stuff where they're screwing over some of these other providers because it's just consolidating so much. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just
kind of a monopoly in a way, but not.
Well, you only have a few providers.
Yeah.
So you only have a handful of actual.
So that says on here, a widely cited example of the violation of net neutrality principles was when the internet service provider Comcast was secretly slowing, aka throttling,
through Xfinity,
uploads from peer-to-peer file sharing applications by using forged packets. Comcast didn't stop blocking these protocols like BitTorrent until the FCC ordered them to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, strangely,
it says AT&T was also caught limiting access to FaceTime.
Yep.
You know what? I'm kind of glad I don't understand this. I think I'm going to stay there. All I'm concerned is that can I get a certain TV show on my TV?
So here's the argument.
But that's the thing.
I know,
if
but
the TV show is provided by somebody that is a competitor to who you're getting your cable through, if they don't have this in place, then your company has the option to.
But all I want
make
to
it
do
hard for you to see it.
is go through and scroll until I see something I like. I mean, we probably watch maybe 7, 8 channels. My wife and I, with National Geographic. We did watch Spike the other night and caught cops. So, I'm checking to see if, every once in a while I see somebody I know that worked for me in there, and when they're doing Kansas City, make sure I didn't have any of my employees show up recently.
But while this doesn't affect you greatly, my generation views media.
Oh,
as a
yeah,
completely
I
different
agree.
facet, and this hurts that incredibly.
I agree.
It does.
I agree.
But the argument on the other side, which is a legitimate argument, is
I see your point.
if you are a network provider and there are, like a Netflix requires an enormous amount of bandwidth to deliver their product versus, like our site or somebody else's normal site doesn't require hardly any bandwidth to provide, and so, and that's always been the argument from them, and so it's less, they would make the argument, if you're AT&T, you're making the argument, well, different providers hog certain resources that we have to pay for, and so that's not necessarily fair. We're having to improve our network so that Netflix is delivered better. That doesn't make any sense to me either. So and while I'm all in favor of net neutrality, and I believe that is the only way to go. No, this is important. It's what is true on the other side is you're paying for the backbone so that your competitors can be delivered at a fair rate.
Technically, your subscribers are paying for your upgrades because all that's going to do is cause you to raise your rates.
Well, no, if you have Uverse, Netflix isn't paying you anything.
No, but you're
you can
saying
access it anyway.
You're
what I'm saying is that
Netflix
Netflix is a major bandwidth hog.
Right. So you're saying whatever provider you have has to update their system
They
to.
do.
Okay, so that isn't. They're not paying for that. They pass that to their customers.
No. What I'm saying is Netflix is only a content provider, so they can say, "Hey, guess what? We're now delivering 4K movies. This is great for us.
Right.
Awesome. Do you know how much bandwidth it takes to deliver?
Okay, but
4K?
we're still.
So what I'm saying is Netflix isn't the one delivering the product. It actually has to go from Netflix's servers, which are actually hosted on Amazon, which is strange. But
I get what you're
beyond
saying.
that, it requires a network upgrade to be able to deliver that content
I get
in
that.
a reasonable way that AT&T or Time Warner or whoever else is paying for. So
Well, I
get that
see. You're
too.
not. I
You're
see what you're saying.
subsidizing
You're
your
not.
competitors.
You're not condoning it, but you're saying you
subsidizing your
understand.
competitors.
You understand.
I do get it because when I was working at Sprint and you had limited bandwidth, there were people who would hog the bandwidth, and that's a very difficult thing. When you're out there and you're inventing new movie sites and all this kind of stuff, and now you can deliver 8K, 10K if you really wanted to, although there's no TVs on the market that would show that. But it'll get there. That requires a network infrastructure upgrade in terms of billions of dollars.
I get that. What I'm saying is they'll recoup their loss or whatever they have to pay by raising
gets
their
passed to
rates.
the
It all
customers.
gets paid.
So you're saying that so the answer is that AT&T just needs to start charging all
No,
out more
I'm
for
not
internet
saying that.
service.
I'm not saying that.
That's
what
the
I'm
only
saying is if they have to pay for some kind of upgrade, it's not like they're just going to eat that.
They're gonna raise rates.
Right. I don't
On the
necessarily
consumer.
think that that's the answer either, but
Yeah,
that's what would happen.
But the argument is that Netflix is paying nothing to any of the providers for bandwidth. They just have a service that they provide, which they can start delivering 8K files if they want to now. And the bandwidth providers have to somehow find a way to be
There
able
has
to
to be
deliver it to
some
your
happy
home.
medium, and nobody's even
Well,
talking about that.
in that case, you have tiered packaging and what sort of internet you want to have in your home. For instance, if I want to pay, for Google Fiber, the gigabit internet that would easily handle the bandwidth that any of these Netflix programs offer.
It won't. Not
Really?
Not when you start doing really serious high-level video stuff.
Okay.
It won't. And we are already outgrowing gigabit stuff right now. What happens is
we're not
every
gonna be able
time
to keep up.
every time you incrementally increase the capacity of the network,
But the
then people
difference-
come and say, "Great, then I can
we
start
do this."
delivering."
But the
better
difference
video."
between Google Fiber and Time Warner, or Spectrum, and Comcast, Google Fiber is dedicated to you, the person paying for it. Time Warner or Comcast,
Sure.
they share bandwidth between homes and areas. So yeah, there could be tiered packaging, but
But what that doesn't mean is that what the problem is that Netflix isn't paying for that. Netflix is the content that you're watching. So you're calling up Netflix on your, laptop or whatever, even your TV device, whatever it may be, and that's hogging so much bandwidth because Netflix can start going, all of our movies, again, are 8K, 10K format, crystal clear, the best video resolution we have. Because don't think it's just the bandwidth that's increasing at the same time. It's also the quality of the video and the size of the video and everything else is going on.
Well, now you've got Amazon doing their own programming and Hulu
they
and
do
Netflix
4K stuff
and,
now. I mean, like Amazon Fire does 4K. Well,
Is
that
it
delivers it. That
spec?
requires a network that can deliver that content to you in a reasonable fashion to you as a consumer, and they're not the ones paying for it. It's again the AT&Ts and the Spectrums and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm all in favor of net neutrality.
Hold on one
a
second.
different model.
I'm laughing because I'm watching Big Dave's head about to explode over here, trying to follow this conversation. Before I go to the next topic,
I got one quick question before we go on.
I just don't. I don't think that they're necessarily.
I got
paying
one quick
for it.
question. I think it's pretty simple.
yes,
To understand, there's a political component that this government's done this. So, the Obama administration did something. They put in net neutrality.
No. There never was net neutrality.
All right.
I mean, we've had net neutrality the entire time.
But they did something before he left office or somebody did.
I think it was before Obama's.
I think it might have even been Bush.
And so,
yeah.
and so now it's the Trump administration now, the FCC under the Trump administration has now done something.
Right.
What
They
they're
want to do
proposing is
something.
They want to take regulations off.
Right.
Right.
They want to allow.
And is that good or bad?
That's bad.
That would be bad.
Okay.
That would be bad.
But it's also, in a weird way, a broken model that doesn't work.
Yeah, it was
on
2004
either side.
when Comcast
It was under
thing
Michael
happened.
Powell, who was
Yeah.
Colin Powell's son, who was the head of the FCC.
Yeah, but it was 2004.
Right.
Was when the first case came up about
net
somebody
neutrality.
doing that.
Right.
And why they even had to discuss it. So it was during Bush.
Then it came during the major public eye whenever they were trying to pass SOPA, right?
Okay.
So that was a
Yeah.
huge thing.
All right, I'm good.
It's
Good?
extremely
I'm good?
important. to
Okay.
My head still hurts, but I'm good.
All right. So we'll move forward past net neutrality to something hopefully a little lighter. At 110.5 million, Basquiat's painting, a Basquiat painting, becomes the priciest ever sold by a U.S. artist. I've heard from a few people that they felt like that was just wildly expensive and wildly overpriced. But as an artist, and really as an artist of any type, the one thing I have learned about art of any type is it is as valuable as the consumer base thinks that it is.
And somebody thought it was worth 110.5 million.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you think about, I think one of the things is not that paintings haven't sold for this or more for that matter. This is the first American artist that has ever sold for that much. So I think this is why this got attention. But it's funny. Yeah, I do want to say that that in an odd way, hip hop has something to do with the fact that Basquiat is worth the kind of money he's worth now. Basquiat was truly the first painter that was of the hip hop generation. He was actually in.
He did graffiti on walls.
He started from graffiti, and Blondie had Basquiat in a music video. One of her first videos, and when she was going 5 pretty things, everybody's fly, and she's walking through this maze of people. One of the people she stops and kind of talks to and gives high fives to or whatever is Basquiat himself, and
in the past 5 years, 6 years-ish, we've had a lot of rappers in particular who have come into. There's a certain type of wealth, and when you get to art wealth, like your past cars, your past jewelry, your past designer clothing, then you start actually having wealth. Then people start buying art because art doesn't depreciate the way everything else does. And one of the things that
Unless you spent $110 million on it.
yeah,
Well, I'm looking at
that's to be seen.
list of the highest priced paintings ever sold, and
Yes.
the highest one adjusted for inflation was at $303 million, and it originally, when it was sold, was $300
Who
million.
was the artist?
Cooning.
When was it sold?
It was sold in 2015.
So that's why I say, in the grand scheme of what art costs, it really wasn't that expensive a painting. Well, it's exorbitantly expensive, but if you're somebody who can afford that type of collection, then yeah, it's probably not. Like Jay-Z famously rapped in one of his lyrics, that he has a Basquiat hanging in his kitchen, and he tells his baby girl, "You go ahead and touch that; it's yours." And so I think with like the Jay-Z's and Beyonce's and Kanye West's of the world actually starting to be old enough and wealthy enough to actually rap about these types of things in their songs, the general public has taken more of a notice to an artist like Basquiat or Banksy or something like that. And
There are 27 paintings that sold for more than Basquiat's.
yeah, that's what I say. It's really not
Well-
exorbitantly expensive in that world.
Well, to say in the entire history of art, there's only 7 that have sold for more.
Yeah.
Makes it exorbitant.
It's not
It's
cheap.
not like art was invented like 5 years ago.
No, I mean, it is an elite group.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a quite an
But you
elite
can
group.
go out to Wikipedia and it says list of most expensive paintings, and it
Sure.
has what they sold for, what the inflation rate was, and who
So
bought it,
adjusted
who
over
sold
time,
it, who
sort of,
painted it.
anyway.
Yeah. But even adjusting for inflation, that Kooning painting was still the most
Number one.
expensive.
At 303 million, 300 million, and it's now
When it
worth
was sold
300 million.
Yep.
So the only thing that bothers me slightly is, and I don't know who the buyer was or what they're going to do with it, but it used to be that you would have private collections that you would put on display in museums so that everybody could enjoy them.
That bothers me too.
Now
really
these
don't
people
like
are
the
just
private
hanging these in
people.
their homes.
Yeah, and that's what really bothers me. I'm like, hey, congratulations on having the money, but at some point,
I mean, and
have
half
a
of
little
them-
civic responsibility.
Well,
Well,
now
most
I
of them
agree with
don't
that.
even display them in their home. They
I
put
do
them
agree.
in a crate and they put them in
Yeah,
a special room, and you never see them
Yeah,
again.
and there are some people who invest in art as an investment. So,
Yeah.
and that's, I guess that's your right to do. But art is such a, such a publicly visual medium
Yes.
that I would love to see. Again, like we have one of the wealthiest private art collections here in Kansas City in the United States. It's stunning. The Nelson Atkins Museum is absolutely stunning, and if it's not the #1 privately held art collection,
There's a lot of
it's
private.
right up there.
Like the Bothros and the Blocks and
Absolutely.
all their private collections that they
Yeah,
have.
they've done.
Well, and this
Let's
tells
not-
you
let's not forget the Thomas
it's
Doyle
interesting to
Absolutely.
see
It's
who
public
sold
service.
and who
It's
bought,
public service.
who sold and who bought the paintings, because some of them are people
See, one
in
thing
this
that a lot of
country
people may not
who
know,
sold them.
Crosby Kemper was good friends with Thomas. And my wife's accountant was the Benton accountant when she was at the bank. So when Thomas died, Crosby went to the vineyard and packed up all the artwork and took it and put it in the vault at UMB. a lot of it's still in the vault. at
So
UNB.
it looks
Jesse
like
Jesse Benton doesn't have control over all that art.
Sure.
And it's kind of interesting, all the stuff my wife told me about this and how it all played out. And it's a rather interesting deal.
Well, one of the things I do
how
like
they,
is
you know, it's
there are a lot of
in
privately
my
held
former
art
life, I found out that cocaine was God's way of telling me I had too much money, and I kind of relate the art to some of these people that maybe it's telling you have too much money.
A little too much.
Like that. What I do think is that if you do it in the sense of, because there's so many privately held art museums, and the paintings often rotate between all of them, and it's really nice. So you get them for a while.
Yeah,
get some
and then you
to
move to another
Toledo
city,
or you
right.
go to Pittsburgh
I've-
or somewhere else.
so. You
I
know
love the
who
Benton
bought the Basquiat? Do you know?
I have
Oh,
no
he's
idea.
a Japanese businessman.
Billionaire.
He
Really?
3.6 billion. He's U.S. worth
3.6.
3.6.
6 million.
He's the 14th the wealthiest person in Japan. 14th wealthiest
Yeah,
person
he
in
wouldn't
Japan.
even come close to being the wealthiest in Japan.
He is. This is right
14th,
here.
I mean,
14th
14, yeah.
richest person in Japan.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that doesn't make you number
Worldwide,
one.
that doesn't fit in that eye.
What?
I mean, number one is what Carlos Slim at $80+ billion.
So it's
Yeah.
Yusaka
I'm not saying that you're not
Meizawa.
exceptionally wealthy.
Meizawa.
Right.
I don't know my Japanese,
Yeah, what's
but
the-
Yusaka is his first name.
Be happy to take a tenth of it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, so with that, we're gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, you having a good time? Let me introduce you to a couple of my media brothers. First, www.americathemixtape.com, a cipher on American politics, society, and culture. And where'd I get that mixtape? Of course, www.cornerbodega.us, purveyors of urban culture. Come on, let's get back to the party.
All right, so we're back, and we are now talking about Trump says we don't have health care in this country. So, so when I saw this particular quote, my immediate thought was, what the fuck? And I thought that maybe this group might want to talk about that. Just a little bit, and I will jump to Chris and see what are we thinking about.
I will say I am a proponent of more organized and national healthcare, and not necessarily single payer, but more options. So I've said numerous times I wish you could sell across state lines and make it a more competitive industry. But I do think the solution is going to have to eventually be a bipartisan compromise that allows you to be more competitive, be a national player, and make it more affordable while mitigating your risk, because that's what insurance is. But at some point, you also can't kill innovation, because we are one of the most innovative medical countries in the world, as we should be.
True.
And a lot of that is because, it comes back to you in the form of your insurance payments and stuff. But I just hope at some point, insurance is it's just insanely expensive. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we don't have healthcare, it's that the healthcare we have is unaffordable, inefficient, not run correctly on any level. And I don't care if you're a hospital, if you're an insurance provider, if you're the government, it's not affordable, efficient, and most of the time it doesn't actually even work. So you're saddling Americans with enormous bills that they can't pay, and that is the cause of a ton of debt, which is crippling this economy.
Yeah.
That is my exact opinion. I hold that opinion to a T.
No, I should let you go.
No, you said it much better than I would have, so
I doubt that.
I just
But I
completely
will
agree.
take another one of those drinks.
I've stated before as a businessman, I'm always trying to find solutions for myself and my wife and my employees. And Chris is spot on. This has to stop being a partisan issue and start becoming a national issue where everybody gets off their goddamn high horse and quit worrying about their own goddamn selves. Here's something interesting as we talk about our government. I'll be interested to see a survey at how many of our congressmen people and our senators have ever had to go out and purchase health care for themselves. Probably pretty close to zero.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have that one congressman that's like, I was on Obamacare and it was horrible or whatever, and it was like, bullshit, buddy.
Yeah.
You were on some version of Obamacare.
They have their own special health care.
Yeah.
Congress.
Yeah, so, how can we expect our elected representatives to really get down to the dirty deed of getting something done that's good for the people? I mean, that's all you can do is bang on them and bang on them and bang on them, but I don't see in this partisan landscape that we're in now that these people can do it because it's either my way or the highway.
Well, we being Mario and I have talked a lot about how whatever Congress decides is good for us, they should have to follow those same laws.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that they should be allowed to vote on their own rules.
You'd find
because
90% of the
that's
public would
ridiculous.
agree on that, I would say.
And I would be more curious, not asking how many of them have ever had to go out and buy their own insurance, because we already know the answer to that. I think I would be more curious to know how many of them have actually talked to their constituents. Because most of them, what they believe and what their base believes isn't the same thing.
No.
And it's...
But do they care? That's...
Well, and to me, you should know what your elected officials believe in, and you should vote according to, if you need to find out. You can't just be like, well, they're the Republican and I'm voting for the Republican.
Or vice versa.
If you're not even paying attention to their voting policy, to the things that they have, the bills that they have put up for, I'm losing my words.
Well, Nancy Pelosi said it best, that nobody read Obamacare, but they know they needed it. But the trick in what you're saying is an elusive one. So you can have two schools of thought, and it's hard to know which one is right. So in one case, you feel like people elected you because of what you said you believed in, and so that's what you go with, because you need to trust your instincts and what you ran on, etc., your platform. The other one is I represent my constituents, and so I kind of need to get the pulse of what they're feeling and see and vote however I feel like my state would vote. Mm-hmm. Those are separate things. Those are very separate things, and I think
they should be.
They're both legitimate schools of thought, and I
Yeah.
understand that. You can't poll everybody on every question and see what's going on. But what I do think on healthcare is everybody knows it's broken. It is such a broken system, and we are one of the worst countries in the world with our healthcare system, and yet we're the richest country in the world, and we can't even get this right. This is where it becomes embarrassing. This is where special interests have taken over, and what you're saying is absolutely true. There's just too many dollars behind not fixing a broken system that makes it impossible to make healthcare affordable. And I think if you look back at the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, this clearly falls under the life category to me of being able to be healthy. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't excuse you from making poor choices in your life. For God's sakes, I'm drinking a drink and having a cigar right now while we're talking. But at the same time, I'm like... But
you're affecting you. You're not affecting
what I am
thousands
saying is
of other people.
I am if we're all grouped together in a group, which is what insurance policies do, is they make a group and they mitigate the risk, and they have actuarial tables to say, amongst this group, here's how long you're going to last. Well, if you start putting unhealthy people, a lot of unhealthy people, which is what happened under Obamacare, into these groups, because the insurance companies were all in favor of Obamacare, turned out, well, shit,
Well,
these are the most
they
unhealthy
did
people
the
in
one,
America.
the not the one thing,
the
but
cost
one
of
of the
treatment went way up.
But one of the biggest things that they did was they also approved the staying on your parents' health insurance until you're 26.
But that should have been a
So,
given.
to me, it should be if your company offers insurance, you should have to do that. If they don't, then
No.
you can stay on your parents'
You should
insurance.
be able to get the best insurance that you want. If your company offers it, and we did offer it to everybody at 100%, we covered all their insurance bills. That doesn't necessarily mean that I could be what their parents had, because maybe their dad worked at GE and they were covered way better off than we were, because that's a much larger
company.
pool.
Right.
You know, and so you should be able to get affordable health care with no restrictions that goes across state lines, with tort reform that minimizes punitive damages, or at least takes those punitive damages that are just outrageous, and that should not go to the individual. That should go into a collective fund that goes back out. Because just because you smoked your entire life does not mean that you deserve $3 billion because you got cancer and died. You know, that everybody knows this money's bad. You should get the actual damages, not the punitive damages, and reform.
It's like
reform
workers'
it.
comp.
At least
Workers' comp set
some
that up.
smaller percentage of
That's
those.
exactly how workers' comp set up.
But then you got the look. I mean, again, I come from a family of lawyers. The lawyers on these cases take 1/3. They take 33% of
Off
the
the
winnings.
top.
Exactly.
And
So
that's why
comes
the trial
first.
lawyers will never ever go for this.
And they
Well,
are.
and that
That is
goes
one of the
back
biggest
to
Democratic lobbies.
yeah.
So this is why Obamacare, I believe, failed, was for two reasons. One, you couldn't go across state lines, and again, secondly, you never did anything about tort reform, which is why so many hospitals and doctors and everything require test after test after test after test to make sure they don't get sued for malpractice, because insurance is unreasonably high on it, and because everybody wants to sue.
Agree
So
with you.
there's responsibility on both sides.
Well, and that it's not just. We are a society of. You hear it all the time. Our president is just as bad about it now. How many times have you heard him say, "I'll just sue you"? You know, I mean it.
Yeah, we're
That's where
quite
they
a
don't
litigious
have.
country.
Yeah, they don't have any. Let's sit down and talk it through, or it's just immediately.
Okay, well then
They can't beat a podcast. That's why they
I'll
need
give you
to
a
beat
different
a
example.
podcast.
My brother used to work at Kansas City Life, and the amount of false claims from people that were taking them out, and people that had already died, or this person already has cancer, now I want a life insurance policy, blah blah blah. Those things are ridiculous, and people do it all the time. We sit here and act like the government sucks, but people are really cool and they want to
It's
do
the
the
lottery.
right thing.
Well, the government's made up of people. I mean,
No. Hear me out. There's a lot of con artists and just crappy people
I
out there
agree with that.
trying to take advantage of a system.
Yeah.
And what happens is anytime you set up a system,
they
the
become
first thing they try to
politicians.
do
Is
is
figure out how to get
figure out
around
how
it.
to do the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I've wrestled with this one, and I do think the only way to truly reform the system is that everybody has to utilize the system. So Congress, the president, everybody has to be using the same system. Then
It's a
we'll
little bit
see
hard for the
actual,
president, though, to
but
do
we'll
that.
see actual reform when the Congress and the Senate has to use Obamacare or use Trump care versus they're making rules for everybody else, but they have some of the best health care in the land, and that's
they don't
just
have to pay for
and
it.
they don't have to pay for it. Exactly.
We
So-
are paying for it.
exactly.
Let's not forget that. It's not government money, it's tax.
Yeah, it's taxpayer money. Exactly.
I'll tell you what, I would
That's
exempt-
where it
I would
gets-
exempt
they
the
get
president.
skewed.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
exempt
I mean,
the
it's a little
president,
bit hard.
but
It's
I
not
would
like
say
you can
Congress.
just go out and find the doctor.
No, I get that. I get that. I get
Yeah,
that.
that's a little-
Yeah. And his
But
family.
congressmen and congressmen.
They're an idiot who's living in the White House.
living in the White House family.
Yeah.
Like I'm just.
To be perfectly fair, like most people think the president just makes a ton of money and do whatever he wants. And
No,
everything.
he
It was
does not.
It's actually not the
$120,000 or something like that.
No, it's more than that. They raised it.
Maybe
since then. I think
300,
it's
but
200.
still.
Yeah.
Closer there. But they still have to pay for all the dinners, all the food, all the other stuff that comes through. Like You don't get rich by being president until you leave being president.
Blair, do you leave?
Right.
You know, so.
Well, and they don't.
But-
They're not even allowed to keep the gifts that they get. Not
No.
like it all goes into an archive,
Yeah,
has to.
exactly.
or it's supposed to.
Exactly.
I'm sure some may disappear at some point.
I'm sure
I'm
that
sure
really
somebody's
good ones.
touched
The
with
really
hidden
good ones are
somewhere
gone.
by somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember where I put that diamond. That's really strange.
Oh gosh, geez.
Okay, so before we get out of here today, I'm adding a new section to the show, and that section is the sugar honey iced tea, or things that I or maybe a member of the panel find that are really cool or the shit. So today, so I'm challenging everybody during the week. Keep your eye out for things, and it could be a thing. It could be literally like I saw this really, really freaking cool pair of shoes, or some device, or whatever. But I'm going to start it off with last night's Billboard Awards, Billboard Music Awards. Drake happened to break the record for the most Billboard Awards won in any one show. It was formerly held by Adele at 12, if I'm not mistaken, and Drake won 13 Billboard Music Awards last night, so he now has the record. So whether or not you are a fan of Drake or not is not important to this discussion, but the fact that he is now a record holder in the Billboard Music Awards.
Did you say that you saw something about he's been on every week for 8 years in some capacity?
He's been on the charts nonstop for 8 years.
I wonder what that compares to Pink Floyd, because Pink Floyd's album, their big album, and I'm not a Pink Floyd fan, so I figure what it is, but it was on the charts for something like 25 years in the Billboard Top 200.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't remember what it was.
Old Big Dave and my beautiful wife actually watched the Billboard Awards for the better part of an hour.
Okay.
I made Mario turn it. I couldn't deal.
It was painful at times for us. The opening act with Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, I heard the
I
Nicki
said,
Minaj melody.
Yeah.
We changed. Is
What
that when you
the-
turned it on? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, if this is my option, turn it back to whatever it was you were watching. before.
We were watching the Bernie Madoff movie, and she was like, "Okay, this is too heavy." So I flipped
I was
it
getting
to
annoyed. I was getting annoyed, and I
Yeah.
needed to not be annoyed on a Sunday night.
yeah. So I flipped it to the Billboard Music Awards, and they were in the opening Nicki Minaj medley, and she was like, "If this is my option, please turn it."
Thank you, an honest female, because my wife and I are watching this going, this is truly bad.
The
This
awards
is really,
shows
really,
anymore.
really bad, and this is the opening act. It's just like, we get to thinking to ourselves, it has truly passed us by. We do believe that the music that came more out of our generations was music. And there was so much stuff that was sang there by some of the girl artists and everything else. It was just horrible. I mean, it was just, there's nothing.
I will say this, because I've had this conversation with many a person, most of which who either produce or are artists themselves over the past several years. I've made a distinction in my mind to just let some things go. I remember growing up, and you were at a family gathering, and all of the young people would sit around, and you'd have conversation with the older adults for a little while. And after a while, we'd almost all in unison get up, and we'd go downstairs in the basement, and we'd hang out together, and they'd hang out together. And what I think has happened is we're all sitting in this collective digital community. And so there isn't the kind of separation that there used to be, because I remember, growing up, my parents and grandparents didn't understand rap music. But, they thought it was cute and cool that we knew all this stuff and we knew all these dances. And from time to time, they'd say, oh, come up here and show us that dance. Because they understood it wasn't for them. And they let young people have young people's stuff. And so I've kind of put myself back into the mind frame of some of it isn't for me. The anonymous female's daughter just graduated from high school. And some of the stuff she's doing and some stuff she's listening to, now I might get it because I'm a musician myself, but most people my age are probably going, what the hell is that? And it made me remember there was a time that what the hell is that meant, that's just not for me. That's for those young people, and let those young people have their young people stuff.
But I like Nicki Minaj. That was just like, what the hell's going on? Like, it's not even her. It's the production of the shows now.
It was horrible.
Like these shows now, the music show, the award shows, I am like, what are you guys thinking? And I guess to your point,
yes,
they are going towards a younger audience.
Yeah, going toward.
And I get that, but I also noticed that Drake is this clean-looking, clean-dressed dude.
Yes.
He projects a different image compared to so many of these other yahoos out there.
Yeah, I mean,
Drake, he acts like he's a pro.
Well, I think the biggest difference with, like I said, once again, whether you like Drake or you don't like Drake, I think the biggest difference with Drake is, and I think a lot of people tend to forget, is that Drake is not American.
He's Canadian.
So since he didn't grow up, his father's American. His father's from Memphis. But he didn't grow up here. He grew up in Toronto. So his view of music, his view of the world is very different than a black person that grew up on Southside Chicago. So the kind of music he makes and the image that he portrays, he's not trying to be like overly gangster. He's just trying to make good records that people anywhere in the world might like. Mm-hmm. And that is a very different mind state than I think a lot of people, especially those who kind of grew up in love with rap here in America, are used to. So mentally and emotionally, a lot of people fight against what Drake is doing. Personally, I think Drake's phenomenal, and I love his approach to things, because whether he's rap or not, he does in a lot of ways, to your point, Dave, harken back to the days of the polished professional performer.
Yes.
And I personally like to go to a show where I'm going to see somebody who puts on a really great show.
Yes.
Because I've also been to 1,000 shows with
I'm spending my money. I want to be entertained by a professional artist.
Yeah, but I've been to 1,000 shows. Was it Steve Harvey? One of his stand-ups years ago. He said, I just don't understand rap, because there's 40 boys on stage and they all have a microphone. You got 40 boys with a microphone, and you can't understand what anybody's saying. Versus Drake, who's like he's hearkening back to one performer, maybe one hype man, maybe. Generally, they don't even have a mic. It's just maybe one other guy on stage with him, and he's spent a lot of money and time putting together the visual display and everything else behind him, because you came to see the star.
He doesn't have a bunch of dancers crawling on the stage. Did you notice that in the first couple of songs?
Oh yeah.
These guys all strapped out in leather, and they spent more time crawling around on the stage than they did actually dancing. And I'm going, what the hell is this?
Well, if you saw Saturday Night Live this past week, and Keenan Thompson did a great skit.
No, I missed it.
It was phenomenal. It ended up is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was like getting ready to do the song, and there's like 20 featured performers.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. At a certain point.
But
Now, I will say,
I'm going to go a different way.
Miley Cyrus surprised me a little bit. She had a great visual of the ocean behind her.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, actually, I
What she
you know,
did there.
I think Miley went through a period of, to tell you the truth, I really think it was just a period of growing up. And I think she's come out on the other side.
She's a lot polished.
A much more polished performer.
She's trying to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
go
thought that was a good performance.
I'm going to go a different direction since we're talking about just stuff of the week.
Yeah.
And I would say to Ben, I believe the cocktail that you described was invented on Friday night.
Yeah.
Which he invented for a friend that we had in town. And it was incredibly delicious, incredibly cool, and one of the, if anybody doesn't know, Ben's one of the best mixologists in town. And to be able to create that on the fly was stunning and cool, and so impressed our friends that they were blown away.
That's
they
awesome.
were in from California, and they didn't know anything about Kansas City, and blah, blah, blah. And truly blown away by that. So
That's fantastic.
Thank you for doing that.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, I love doing that.
So I was very, very impressed.
All right. So on that note, I think I am going to end this podcast in the way that I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is to good times with good people.